Well, good morning and a warm welcome. My name is Harry Mountain and I'm here on the beautiful MarineMax 443. What we're going to do today is walk you through the systems on board the boat and give you an in-depth look at how to operate everything and how everything works on board the boat. So I look forward to sharing the information with you, and of course, as always, should you have any questions or need more information, it's going to be available on YouTube and also at MarineMaxVacations.com. So let's get started. So a very important part of the boat is actually the what we call the distribution panel. And this is where you've got obviously a lot of switches that are going to operate the onboard systems. So what I want to do initially is just give you an overview of this board. Basically, it's broken up into 4 areas. You've got a 12 volt area here, as you can see with all your switches. You've got a 120 inverter section to the distribution board. You've got a 240 section. And over here, as part of the 12 volt section, you've got everything associated with your navigation. On the top here, we've got displays showing you volts, amps, and then underneath that, we've got various selector switches and breakers, all of which I'm going to go into in great detail. First of all, let's understand that on the 12 volt system here, this is going to run off your main household batteries, along with the navigation panel right here. The 120 will work when your inverter is on, and the 240, this section right here, only works when you're on either shore power, hooked into shore power, or whether you are on your generator. Again, I'll go through that shortly. So that basically gives you an overview of the panel itself. So let's start down here on the 12 volt, and I'm just going to flip across here and show you the opposite side. So what we've got here is we've got our generator panel. We'll demonstrate that shortly. We've got gauges here for the holding tank system. I'll explain that, along with indicators and switches to pump those out. We've got a fresh water tank indicator here that's always going to show you how much fresh water you've got. We've got the inverter control. We've got the water maker control. And these guys down here, these are important switches. These are your switches to activate your batteries. The boat is set up that you have batteries, house batteries, which are designated to allow you to run your systems on board, and it's only going to draw power from the household battery. You've got a separate generator battery to start the generator. You then have 2 separate port and starboard engine starting batteries. Over here, you've got these big yellow breakers, and right now they're in the on position. I'm going to turn them off, but in order to turn these on to operate the windlass, push it down. Everything up on the flybridge will be up there later on, push it down. And then the davit system for the dinghy, push it down, and that's all activated. So again, a general overview of this panel. Household battery, that is on right now. Now let me show you how to turn that on and off. It's very simple. You flick this little panel up here, and that would turn it off. In order to turn it back on, simply pull that down and push it back on. And that is the same with all these batteries. So very simple operation. We know we've got the household battery switch on. We're now going to look at the 12 volt system again. It's clearly marked. Up here, you've got a way to see what the voltage is on your batteries. So battery number 1, if we just pop this little dial around there, is going to show that's the engine starboard battery, and you can see it's at 13.2 volts. So it's nice and healthy. You can go to your house battery number 2, which coordinates, it's written here, so there's no confusion. The generator battery, 3, and the engine port battery number 4 is 13.2. So it's a good way to see that the health and life of your batteries is in good shape, and above 12 is good. So that's a way of just checking batteries on a daily basis. Okay, the actual switches themselves, very easy to operate. Very important though, number one, is this DC main switch breaker, little rocker switch here. This needs to be on in order for this 12 volt section to work. If I don't have that on, and let's say I'm going to put salon lights on, as you can see, there's no little light indicator coming on. Reason being, the DC 12 main has to be on for any of these switches to work. It's laid out very well. It's very simple. Everything's labeled. So in order for your lights to work around the boat, you've got salon lights, you've got the lights in the galley, the lights on the port side of the boat, so that's going to include your heads, your cabin, starboard side of the boat, heads, cabin, the cabin lights in the forward cabin. Up here you've got your courtesy lights, and that will allow the courtesy lights inside the boat and also outside the boat to be turned on and operate as well. As we move down the panel, cabin fans, in order for the fans to work in the cabins, that needs to be turned on. Fresh water pump, obviously a very important one. Okay, next on the panel, two very important switches, the sump pump port and the sump pump starboard. These have to be on in order for your shower drains in your heads to drain. If they are not on and you take a shower, then that water is going to build up. So this is basically going to take the water automatically out from under your shower drains and get rid of it. So two important ones, sump pump port, sump pump starboard. Water maker, we'll come to that later on. Master cabin toilet. So master cabin is the forward cabin. This switch has to be on in order for the toilets to walk up forward. And we've got toilet port and toilet starboard. And we'll go and have a detailed look at those in a minute. Refrigeration. Now your refrigerator is running off 12 volts. So in order to get the fridge and the freezer nice and cool, this refrigerator breaker needs to be on. Very important one, some fun, stereo. Tank monitors. This breaker will allow you to look at all the gauges I showed you on the other side over here. Next on the panel is the fuel transfer pump switch. Now we're going to come back to that later on, but it gives the ability to take fuel from port tank into starboard tank, and I'll explain exactly how that works a little later on. Okay, over here on this side of the panel, as you can see, it's clearly noted navigation. So this is really all your navigational equipment on the boat. Again, very important, like the DC 12 volt main, none of these switches will work and none of the systems will work if the top switch, navigation electronics, is not on. So in order for everything to work, that top breaker switch needs to be switched on like that. Once you've got that on, you can activate your navigation lights if you're out at night. You've got an anchor light, an all-round white. You've got your autopilot. You've got your chart plotter, your VHF, and also a fun one when you're sitting at anchor at night, the underwater lights. So basically, that now has given you a good look at the 12 volt system. Right, just going to quickly run through this area of the systems here, all clearly labeled. But what you've got here is you've got your main fusion stereo system. You've got your VHF underneath it. Over here you've got a couple of fresh water pump indicators, and I'm going to go through the fresh water system with you a little bit later on, but those two lights here are associated to the fresh water system. And over here, this is important. First of all, you've got, as you can see, a little visual of what navigation lights and running lights are on. So when you've turned them on at the panel, you can see that they're operating by these indicators coming on here. So we've got starboard and port, we've got the anchor light on, we've got the motoring light on, and we've got the stern light on. Again, That just is basically showing you that you're activated on the main panel. Underneath here, we've got 4 toggle switches, and these are your main bilge pump switches on the boat. There are 4 bilge pumps in total. There are 1 in each engine bay, port and starboard, and then in the forward cabins underneath the floorboards there is your forward bilge pump, so 4 in total. They should always be left on auto, and as you can see right now, all these are pushed across to the left as indicated on auto. You can turn them off by bringing the switches into the center. You also can manually activate the pumps as well. So if you wanted to manually activate the pumps, you pull it all the way across to the right hand side, a light will come on, and it's a rocker, so you have to hold it there, it won't stay there by itself. And also that provides a way of testing to make sure that your bilge pumps are working if the lights are coming on. But again, these should always be left in auto. Over here we've got the unit for the VHF. We've got the AC control system, which we'll look at later on, and then 2 sets of light switches. Inside lights on the top, outside courtesy lights on the bottom. Okay, so I am up in the forward port locker, and as you can see, it's a big locker and very easy to get down into with these nice, easy to use steps. The reason I'm up here is I wanted to just quickly go over the fresh water system with you. We know how to turn the main water system on at the distribution panel, but now just to give you a quick overview of what you're looking at here. So all the boats essentially have 2 water pumps, 2 accumulator tanks, and they're nicely labeled, so it's very obvious what they are. The way the system works is, if you're just using water in the galley, for example, washing the dishes, pump number 1 is going to say, I'll kick on and deal with that. Let's say you're washing dishes in the galley and someone's using the head and pumping the toilet and someone's taking a shower. As the demand for water increases, the system says, okay, I want to help it out, so pump number 1, I'm going to activate pump number 2 as well, and basically help support the water usage. So simply put, the more water you use in terms of force that's being on will dictate when this secondary pump kicks on and off. Outside of that, as I said, 2 accumulator tanks. You shouldn't need to do anything with those. They do have these small filters on them. Again, you shouldn't have to really touch those, but if something did get you know, in the system, hopefully these filters will stop it. But you can take these plastic caps off, and it's very easy just to clean the little mesh there. And that's essentially how the water systems work. You won't have to worry about checking into these levers. They'll be set up for normal operation. And again, good access down here as well. Just behind me, flicking around quickly, I'll show you the main port water tank, and it's duplicated on the other side as well, at the starboard. So basically the boat has 2 water tanks. Deck filler is very obvious, right up here. The other way you can fill the water tanks as well, which is perfectly all right, is you can actually unscrew the top here and stick your water hose directly in there, and as the water level comes up you'll see it, so you can obviously stop it. So it's another way of filling the water tanks if you like to. So that's really showing you port water tank and water pump system. All right, so let's cover the anchoring system up forward. As you can see, main anchor, chain following through around the gypsy and down into the main anchor well, additional cleat, and handle should you need it if the windlass goes out. Okay, the windlass is actually controlled by this device here, and if you remember, the brain breaker needs to be on at the distribution panel, and then simply you're going to lower the anchor and bring it up using this. Very important safety tip, there's no reason for your hands to be anywhere near the anchor chain or anything going on here. This is designed where you can stand up, got a good visual look of everything, and operate the anchor safely away from the chain. And simply put, to go down, you press the down button, and to go up, press the up button. The system has a little safety on here to prevent the anchor from slipping through. That needs to be turned over this way in order for the anchor to go down. And also up. Once you've brought the anchor up and it's firmly in place, you flick this back down and then just press the down button slightly and it'll lock the chain. If you were to have a problem with this, you can release the anchor without using the remote, and that is by taking this handle and actually undoing the top of the Caspian area here. But in the unlikely event, you've got a secondary cleat should you need it. This here is actually your bridle, and for more information on exactly how to operate this, there's a really good video on YouTube that gives you all the information you need to know about setting up the bridle correctly. So we're just going to cover the operation of the toilets, and as mentioned before, these are fresh water, they're not salt water, so you are using fresh water to flush the toilets. Very simple operation. You've got a small panel here, and you basically got three options. If you want to empty the bowl, you would simply press this little symbol here. In order to flush, you've got two options. There's an eco version, which will basically not use very much fresh water, or there's the normal version, which will use more fresh water. So you can decide, but really that is it. When you press, it will replenish a certain amount of water in the bowl as well. So very simple operation on the toilet, and again, fresh water, not salt water. And please always remember, only toilet paper down the marine head, and only marine biodegradable toilet paper as well. Thank you. To operate the faucet in the shower, it's a simple lever here. You just pull it out and that'll give you water pressure. Coming towards you is hot water. Pushing this lever away is cold water. You can adjust it to the perfect temperature, and you'll get plenty of fresh water coming out of the other head. So having just shown you the toilet operation, let's quickly come back to the what we call the black water tanks. This is where your toilets will empty into, and again, you've got a gauge to see how full they are, and should it become completely full, one of these red lights will come on to the corresponding tank. To empty your black water tank, first of all, obviously you do not want to be doing this in a harbour. You want to be as far out to sea as you possibly can, and you're simply going to press that switch down. It's a rocker switch, you have to keep it pressed down. If you release it, it'll turn off. But this here, forward, port and starboard, is how you empty your black water waste tanks. So I'm in the port engine bay right now, and what I'm going to walk through you with is the fuel transfer system. So important to understand that when your generator is on, you're only pulling fuel from your starboard fuel tank and not from your port tank. So I'll show you the gauges up on the flybridge a little later on, and you might see that the gauge, if you're running your generator in starboard, is going down quicker than port. If you're running your generator, that's the reason why. So the boat is designed for you if you need to, and I should stress you probably won't need to do this, but should you need to transfer some fuel, you can transfer from your port fuel tank into your starboard fuel tank. Important to understand, you can only transfer port to starboard, not starboard to port. There's a very simple way of doing this, which I'll show you right now. Okay, so in order to transfer fuel from your port diesel tank to your starboard diesel tank, it's a very simple operation. You've got this pump located up here. You've got an off and on switch. The fuel transfer main breaker on the distribution panel must be on in order to make this pump work, and then you simply flick the switch to on. Now the way to see how much fuel to transfer across is to go up to the flybridge and look at your fuel gauge, and you'll see that the fuel gauges will react. And again, off and on, very simple. So this is the pump, always located in the same place for transferring fuel from your port tank to your starboard tank. So still in the port engine bay, I wanted to point out a couple of other things that you should be aware about, and some very easy and basic checks. First of all, the air conditioning unit. This is the actual air conditioning, cooling seawater intake, and on top here you've actually got the filter. So one thing to know is that if there was a problem with the AC, just to make sure that this strainer basket is actually clear. Now you can visually see into it, but it's very simple just to unscrew this, take the basket out, clean the basket, pop it back in, do it nice and tight. Very important. If before you do that, you must make sure that you turn off the through hole. This is allowing the seawater to travel up here. So the sequence would be valve off, lid off, basket out, quick clean, basket back in, lid on nice and tight, valve back on, check for no leaks. With the valve in line with the pipe, that is your valve on. So still in the port engine bay, just a couple of other basic checks and things you should know. One is obviously your oil. Good to check this in the morning, make sure that you've got oil in the engine. So this is your main dipstick right here, as you can see, nice and easy to get to. The other thing just to keep an eye on as well, this is your main engine raw intake strainer. So this is where the seawater comes up to help cool the engine. So again, just want to make sure there's nothing in there that shouldn't be in there, and it's nice and clear. So two things just to keep an eye on during your charter. I did want to point out these two systems here, and basically these are two very large breakers that are associated with your shore power 1 and shore power 2. The reason I'm pointing these out to you, that if you were hooked into shore power and for some reason the power went off, this is a good thing to check, and it could simply be that the system has got overloaded and tripped, and it's a safety mechanism. Basically this big breaker would trip off, and what you would see is you'd see one of these switches was actually sticking out, and all you would simply do is come down and push the switch back in. So good to know they're there. If you did have an issue with shore power, one of the first things to check, and very simple to get to and very simple to check. So we've moved across to the starboard engine bay now, and what I want to show you is the main strainer for the generator. If you experienced problems with the generator stopping, it could be that something has got up into the basket and there's not a lot of water flow. So it's actually an easy process to change, and here's how you do it in the sequence of events. First of all, you need to make sure that you turn the through valve off. Right now, with the through valve in line with the pipe, it is on, and that's where it should be for operation. In order to check this though, you must turn it off. And by doing that, you simply pull it across so it's at 90 degrees to the pub, and that's going to stop any of the water coming up inside. You then simply undo the top. You're going to take your basket out. You're going to clean it, make sure it's free of any debris, pop it straight back in, put the lid back on, turn it nice and tight, and then very important, remember to put your through hole back on, which is in line with the pipe, allowing water to flow up. That is what's cooling your generator. So this is how you would check and clean the generator cooling seawater intake strainer. Okay, still in the starboard engine bay, and exactly the same as the other port engine bay. You've got your oil dipstick for checking the oil on a morning basis, and the main strainer exactly the same as the other engine on the port side. So oil and main raw intake water strainer. Over here, right behind the engine, and again in the starboard engine bay, is the generator. That's all enclosed in there. No need really to go in there. Okay, very important system on the boat, the stereo. So in order to activate the stereo, you've got your power on-off button right here. So just turn it on. It takes a couple of seconds just to do its thing. sure most of us want to get to the Bluetooth option. So the way to do that is to come up to this top left-hand corner button up here. And then you're going to get some options. And in order to scroll through the options, you can use the main toggle here, FM, and that'll take you through, and eventually you'll come to BT, which is your Bluetooth. And then you can connect to your phone through that. So that's how to get to Bluetooth. Another important feature is just to know about the zoning, because the boat's set up where it's got speakers in various parts of the boat. So again, press the center main button here and you can see that you've got salon. You can adjust that. Come over here and press on this side. It'll take you to the aft deck. That's out by the aft seating. You can adjust that. Up to the fly bridge, adjust that. I don't think there's a zone 4. So they're the 3 main zones. You can put them all together and adjust accordingly. So basically you're using this toggle to find the required zone and then adjust accordingly. And then on off again there. Just going to run through the VHF quickly. When you turn the system on at the main breaker, under the navigation area on the distribution panel, your VHF is going to come on automatically. It should come on to channel 16, the emergency frequency. In order to change channels, it's very simple. Just toggle around on this main dial here. One thing to show you though is this volume and SQU stands for squelch. In order to select what you want, you need to push it. Right now it's on squelch. I'd like to take the volume up, so I press it again. Volume comes up on the screen and I can adjust the volume accordingly. If I want to adjust the squelch, the static, I simply press it again. I get the squelch reading come up and I can adjust the squelch. But just important to know, this button here is how you activate volume and squelch and control it. And then over here, you've got your handheld. Again, you can take channels up and down. You can go directly to channel 16. And in order to speak, you're going to press this in here. You'd speak and release it when finished. So I'm just going to run over the operation of the generator. Now we're currently on shore power. And you can tell that by seeing we've got shore 1 and shore 2, and they've got those small green lights. And also our 2 main breakers are on shore power 1 as well. So what we're going to do to go from shore power to the generator is, first of all, we're going to shut the shore power off. So everything's off. You should also make sure that everything is off on your 120 and your 240. The 12 volt can stay on. So we've turned everything off. Now what we're going to do is we're going to slide these across. And basically what they're doing is they're allowing you now not to turn the shore power breakers on. So make sure those come across. And as you can see now, we're in a position where when ready, we can flick these 2 main breakers up just for the generator. I'm now going to go and show you how to actually start the generator. These should be in the left in the off position when starting the generator. And again, everything off here. Okay, so covering the operation of actually starting the generator. First important thing is to make sure that your generator battery, designated battery, is on. Pop this down, 1 press, and it'll come on. You'll know it's on because you'll see a light illuminating here. That's now going to allow you to start the generator, and that is this designated panel right here. Okay, so in order to start the generator, we're going to press the glow plug down, top switch, just for about 5 seconds, and then we're going to press the bottom switch up. You'll start to hear it on. You can release the bottom switch and then release the top switch, and the generator is turned on. You'll see we've got PSI oil pressure. Nothing really registering on the cooling X, will take a while to cool. We've got our hour meter and volts showing 14 volts, so all systems go. So now we've got the generator started. We're going to go through the process of turning everything on. So we've got our two main breakers ready to go. We can't do anything with shore power. They're blocked off. Generator, generator breakers. So we're going to flick this up. It's activating, it's on. We're going to flick this up, activating, it's on. Now we can come down to our 120 and 240 and we can start to put systems on. The first important system to put on is the inverter main and the inverter supply. And now you've got the ability with the generator being on to put water heaters on and air conditioning as well. So let's demonstrate the air conditioning. Air conditioning chiller 1 is the main air conditioning unit. That needs to go on first. Once that's on, I like to leave it for about 5 seconds. And then we can turn on the air conditioning forward, air conditioning port, air conditioning starboard. Again, this distribution panel section here can only work with the generator or shore power. Okay, the all-important air conditioning system. So first of all, remember that the chiller unit needs to be turned on the distribution panel, and then each individual zone, forward cabin, port cabin, and starboard cabin. So make sure they're all turned on. Out here above the chart area is the main control for the Webasto AC system. As you can see, it's on right now. It's got that green little logo. Now what we strongly suggest and recommend is don't actually adjust the temperature. The temperature is going to be set already for optimum use. What we do suggest you do is control the airflow by the actual fan, and that's a very simple operation. Over by the fan symbol here, you would simply press it and it'll allow you to increase the airflow with the plus symbol and decrease the airflow with the minus symbol. And to get back to the main menu, just simply press the back arrow there. Okay, going through the process of turning the generator off. First of all, let's turn everything off. So let's turn the air conditioning off. We're going to turn the inverter supply off and the inverter main off. That's taken everything off that part of the distribution panel. Next, before we turn the generator off, we want to turn the two main breakers off. So they're now off as well. Now I'm going to move across the other side of the panel. And again, we know this is our designated generator section of the panel. To stop it, it's using just the bottom toggle switch and hold it down. Generator stops. You'll see lights have gone off the gauges and the gauges are not functioning anymore. And then remember to turn your generator designated battery switch off. Okay, so having stopped the generator, while we're in this area, let me show you how the water maker operates. Remember to have the main 12-volt breaker on this side of the panel, and then you've got your main designated water maker face here. Very simply, when it's powered up, you're going to press the on button, the start button, and it'll make water. The display will show you that you're making water. Some of the systems are designed to shut off automatically after 2 hours. Other systems require an actual manual shut off. Either way, you'll turn it off and then always turn the breaker off the 12-volt panel as well. Okay, so over here in the galley, important point, your cooktop, your microwave, the blender and the coffee pot all require 110. So you do need to have the inverter on in order to make sure that all those appliances work. Okay, headed out of the cabin and now about to head up the stairs to the flybridge. See you up there. Okay, so sitting up here at the Helm station, I want to just give you an overview of what we're looking at here on the console. Starting off on this side, we've got our depth sounder. Over here, we've got our autopilot. Right here, we've got our main chart plotter. Over here, we've got our Volvo Penta engine control panel, our Fusion stereo, control panel, horn, it's working. Couple of gauges, fire suppression system, port and starboard. And what this does is that it would alert to any issues in the engine bay. This red light here only comes on if you have water in your bilge. So if that comes on, it's a good idea to just go down and check your bilges. Otherwise it will not come on. We've got our electronic throttles, and we've got our engine controls for starting the engine. Down here you have a secondary station for the VHF, which we went through down below. So all the functions, squelch, volume, channels, up and down. Okay, so as you can see, we've got our depth sounder here. That'll all be set up for you. We've got our Raymarine autopilot, and a couple of useful tips on this. First of all, when you see standby here, the autopilot is not engaged. You have control of steering the boat. When you want to use the autopilot, you simply come across to the auto switch, press auto, it'll go from standby to auto, and now you're on autopilot. So you do not have control over the helm. You can actually steer the boat by using this center toggle switch here. If you want to go to the starboard, you would turn it around to starboard, bring it back on course. If you want to go to port, bring it around to port. So essentially this now acts as a way to steer the boat. You can make big course adjustments, you can make small course adjustments, but you don't have control over the helm here. In order to go back, quickly go to standby, and now again you've got control. So standby, control from the helm, auto, you're on autopilot. I'll put it back on standby. Over here on our main Raymarine, the screen will come on as soon as you hit the breaker down below. You'll be asked to accept, so press OK there. And then really, you know, the big feature and the main feature will be to go to the chart icon here. And that's going to bring your chart display up here. A couple of basic things. Depth will also be shown on here, as it is on your depth sounder. You'll have your course heading, and also you'll have your speed over the ground number of knots. These chart plotters are very accurate, and we suggest that you really do pay attention to the chart plotter. It's got a lot of information on it, and always, you know, keep an eye on things, you know, happening outside. But these chart plotters are very accurate, so you know, do use them. Over to our Volvo Penta display here. There's a lot of information on this, and it's quite fun to go and sort of explore around this. But I'll show you some basic features. I'm going to start the engine first of all, though. So in order to start the engine, we're going to put the ignition on. That's going to be the port engine. I'm going to put the starboard ignition on, and then we'll come down underneath and we'll go start, and we'll go start. Both engines are now engaged, and you can see your gauges come to life as well. So right now we've got RPMs, oil pressure, and also your temperature of both engines. You've got your engine hours, you've got your voltage 14.4, that's very healthy, engine load, and oil temp. If you come down to this little icon here and just press this way, that gives you your fuel, and this is a good one to keep an eye on. So here are your main fuel gauge. As you can see, it's at 100% on this particular boat, and you can watch that obviously drop as you progress through the charter. Get back to the main page right there. Turn the engines off, stop, and then ignition off, and you know everything's off because the small green indicator lights shut down. So one final very important note, the throttle gear shifters, they're electronic, so they're very easy to use. Obviously forwards is going to be more power. But one very important note is if you need to back off the speed, you must always come back and go into neutral first before going into reverse. In other words, you must never go all the way from forwards through neutral without stopping and into reverse. Just remember, forwards into neutral, couple of seconds, then reverse. Hey folks, I finally made it to my favorite part of the boat, the bar area. So I hope you've enjoyed these videos regarding the systems on board the boat. Please remember that systems might vary depending on age and model of the boat. Remember, there's a lot more information on the MarineMax Vacations YouTube channel, so great place to go, good source of information. Sincerely hope you have safe travels wherever you're going and enjoy a wonderful vacation.